Hey folks, this is Gary Creely with Creely Blades. I want to talk to you a little bit today about grinders. What I want to start out talking about in this introduction is there's some real differences between these grinders, but interestingly, they're more alike than they are different, especially as it relates to the drivetrain. You know, imagine if you were going to buy a truck, and every truck you were going to buy had the same engine and transmission, exactly the same. That's kind of the situation with grinders, especially the ones on the market that are being made by smaller companies and kind of boutique companies for grinders. Why do I say that? Let me tell you. This guy, this is a K-Bach, I don't know if I'm saying that right, K-Bach, 27D. Almost all of your serious grinders that are variable speed. Oh, and by the way, just get a variable speed right out of the gate. Don't even put $150 into a motor that then you have to replace because if you ever want to upgrade it to variable speed. If you're serious about getting a good grinder, variable speed. But most of them have some iteration of this. There is another option. There are cheaper Chinese ones. This guy's $350 to $400 just this piece. The cheaper Chinese ones are like, man, sometimes you can get them for as cheap as $100. So that's one shortcut you could take, and then when that blows up, you could buy one of these. But it will grind for you a while, particularly if you kept the dust away from it. The second thing that's the same in most of these grinders is this guy back here. I don't know if you can see it. That dirty motor back there. That dirty motor is a three-phase sealed induction motor with a C56 plate. We're going to talk more about that C56 plate and some of the options with different grinders. But for the most part, a sealed induction three-phase motor around the 2 horsepower mark, 1.5 to 3, is what most guys are using on these grinders. Another thing that's the same, the general arrangement. These days, most of the grinders that I would suggest you look at have a direct drive. Not all grinders do, but these days most of them do. They have a direct drive wheel. I have a 7-inch wheel. I always, with a variable speed, get as big a wheel as you can, then you have the biggest span of control. An idler wheel here, and then your platen with 2 wheels on the top and bottom. There's some variations on this theme. Some grinders put a big wheel down here on the bottom, or you can put it on the top so that you can turn it and have kind of a built-in contact wheel for grinding other things. So those things about the grinders are the same. So whether you're buying a complete package that's, I don't know, some of them you can get around $2,000, close to $2,000 with those things, and some of them around $4,000+. So what you're really paying for is the frame. And the difference between the frames, the primary differences are 3. The tracking mechanism, the tensioning mechanism, how that works, and the tooling arm arrangement, whether it's this one happens to be 1. This one is loosely based on a Bader. This was my first grinder, and this was one of the earlier kind of secondary market guys that were secondary market that has different meaning in the knife world, but kind of not a Burr King, not a major company, but guys starting to build these, with small businesses starting to build these. So this was based kind of on a Bader. This has served me very well. I have ground hundreds, maybe into the thousands of blades on this, and it's been great. I have 0 complaints about this. So I want to talk a little more about some other things. I'm going to take you to my other grinder and show you a little bit about it. Okay, this is my other grinder, and this is an Ameribraid. This is somewhat newer on the market. I guess it's not that new. It's new to me because I haven't had it that long. This one has 2 tooling arms. It comes with a stand, and the stand holds your additional tooling arms. Although that design has a little bit to be desired because now you're throwing all your your dust down onto your tooling arms. So, but it is handy to store them there. But I'll probably store them somewhere else. This is similar to that. So doesn't this look familiar here? Yeah, it's another K-back 27, I think it's 27D. It's another three-phase motor. This one's actually only 1.5 horsepower. The other one over there is 2 horsepower. But because I'm running them 110, you can't tell the difference. This one does have another trick to it. If I loosen this guy up, this turns sideways. And I have to say, this is one of the nicer arrangements of tilting grinders that I have seen. But there are a lot of things similar to this. There's one difference here. I'll take a picture of it and put it up on the screen here. But the way in which this motor mounts, it is a direct drive, but most of these motors use a C-face, which has a bolt pattern on it, and then there's a plate that you bolt that C plate to. That's fine, it's great, it works well. However, there are a lot of three-phase sealed induction motors that are not, I think it's a 56C plate. And so it would be hard to make them work. But in the case, I'm going to turn this guy again on its side. On the case of the Ameribraid, I don't know if you can see this, but this is just mounted on the foot of the motor, the foot plate of the motor. I'll give you the close-up look at it. So that allows a lot more options as it comes to which motor you want to get. Now, one other thing I want to talk to you about is cost. I am a huge fan and proponent of not buying this from the grinder company and not buying the motor from the grinder company. Sometimes you can find these on sale. If you're really on a tight budget, there are some Chinese ones you can get that are like $100, $150 to get you going, maybe down the road. This is the best unit. Most of your knife makers use this. It's totally sealed. It's using the aluminum casing. There are fins in the back to get rid of the heat using passive cooling. I mean, it's the best choice. The one over there I've had for 5-6 years, whatever it is, and never a hiccup, never a problem. These are great. However, the motors, you can find three-phase induction motors in the 1.5 to 3 horsepower range, probably on your local Craigslist or Facebook for $100, $50. Sometimes people almost give them away just because they think nobody can use them because they're three-phase, and if you don't have three-phase. So what's interesting is the way that the VFD works is it takes regular single-phase 110 or 220 in, and then spits out three-phase out. And if you want to get a little technical, what it does is it changes, the frequencies normally at 60 hertz. It changes the frequency, and by changing the frequency, it changes the speed of the motor, faster or slower. In fact, you can even make the motor go faster than it goes at 60 hertz by doubling the frequency to 120 hertz. And you have that option here that you could run the motor twice as fast. So let's say you needed a 3600 motor and you only had a 1700 motor, you could double that in the VFD and get the speed that you need to get the belt speed that you need. So all that to say, I usually recommend, if you're really on a budget, buy the frame and the wheels, and this, I even bought the stand, and then go out and find your motor and your VFD. That's going to be the nicest arrangement you can get for the best money. So we're going to switch over to the computer and the voiceover and look at a couple models that are out there, maybe price a couple different scenarios for you, and talk about the best way to get a grinder these days. And I'm going to look at some of the major brands. All right, folks. Here we are in the studio of sorts, and I want to talk about a few things first before I get started. One is the prices are in US dollars as of February
14th, 2022. And I don't guarantee any of these prices. They're just what I saw on websites. See their websites for the best prices and accurate prices, because there's a lot of variations of these grinders that change the price. And this is not sponsored. Nobody sent me a grinder for free, unfortunately. And nobody's paying me to say any of this. I just hope that it's a help to the rest of the knife making community, because I know buying a grinder is sort of confusing. It's a big purchase for a lot of folks, and there's just not a lot of information all in one place. So I'm hoping that's what this will be. So the first grinder we're going to look at here is the house-made grinder. This is sort of the I believe it's House Machine Works, and this grinder is sort of really taken a lot of the air in the room lately. I think it is a good grinder. It's a good design. I would recommend, if you were going to do this grinder, now you'll see here they have this thing, the Ultimate Bundle. I would suggest buying it from them. I actually use Send Cut for a lot of little parts and whatnot I make, and it's only slightly cheaper to have them cut out the parts for you, and you still need to find the these tubes, the square tubing, to make it. So I would get the Ultimate Bundle. They have all the parts and everything you need, the nuts, the bolts, everything. And then you get the wheels and grinders. He says they'll cost about $150. And a motor. From Automation Direct, this is a 3-phase induction motor. He does use, as I talked about before, that C56 mounting plate on his grinder, and a variable speed control. 85, he says. That's a real cheapie, and they work though. They work. You just gotta keep them out of the dust. They're not sealed. So he says that you do the whole thing, and it's $990. For a variable speed, 2 horsepower or horsepower and a half or whatever 2 horsepower actually. It's also tilting. But let's just say there is some assembly required with this. But it's a lot of grinder for that amount of money. And I have not used one of these, and so I can't speak to that. But it is an option if you want to get into it less expensively. Another thing you could do is buy the plans and cut them out by hand, either on a bandsaw or with a grinder. He has a bolt pack, which is all the nuts and bolts that you need. I would purchase that. It's like $85 at a minimum. But then you could shave the cost down depending on how much you get the steel for even less. So that's the house grinder. It's sort of different than everything else we're going to look at here, and it's cool. I like it. I don't know that I would buy one in my particular circumstance, just because of the amount of time it would take me to put it together. But if you got more time than dollars, this is a possibility for you. The next up is one that I did buy. This is the Ameribraid. And one of the things that makes it challenging for me to do perhaps one where I have to build it is the fact that some of these grinder companies will just sell you the frame alone, and then you could build it from the already constructed frame. Point of reference here, all of these prices, I'm trying to price the basic variable speed arrangement, including a flat platen, and a work rest. So most of these prices are considering that. Some of these prices, and I'll point them out when we get to them, are for more than that, and we'll talk about that. This is the Ameribraid. I really like this grinder. For this price, you're getting the tilt like you saw on my video, and this, I believe this is a 6-inch wheel down here, and the work rest, that's the bigger work rest. Now the cool thing is you can tilt this platen and then have a contact wheel all in one without even changing the tooling arm or needing another tooling arm. As I mentioned before, this uses the foot of the motor, so you don't necessarily need this C plate on here, and so there's more of a wide array of motors you can use. I'm pretty pleased with the tracking on this. It actually is quite good, and the tensioning is good as well. This is a great choice. It's the grinder that I most recently selected, although there's some of these others here that I'm kind of interested in too. But let's move along. This is the OBM. For the longest time, I thought it was Oregon Blade Maker, but it's Origin Blade Maker. I don't know if they changed their names or I'm just dumb. One of the two, and just didn't read it right. This is probably one of the most affordable options. And one of the things that all the grinders we've looked at so far have that I think is really handy as a maker to be able to design some extra stuff, and especially as it relates to the work rest, is it has accommodation for two tooling arms. And if you get this guy with the VFD and the motor, now that requires a C plate. I don't know if you can see right there and right there, it's got those bolts. That's that C face, 56 C face bolt pattern. So you have to have that kind of motor for this. You can get just the frame for $845. Now you'll see that's a little more expensive than the Ameribraid, but the Ameribraid doesn't include the platen assembly for their frame price. This does include the platen assembly. Although what I do not see here is a work rest. I don't know if this is supposed to suffice as the work rest rather than having a dedicated work rest on the tooling arm. You can dig into that a little bit more. And, this is a grinder I do not have, so my knowledge on it is limited. I will talk about one other thing here. I am not a huge fan of the shocks for the tension. They wear out relatively quick. I think springs last longer, but that's just a design choice. Something to be aware of. Certainly not a deal breaker. Yes, the Grizzly. The Grizzly. This is what a lot of guys start on. And it is what it is. That platen is terrible. That work rest is terrible. It's got decent power for the machine. You can put, a buffing wheel or something on the other end. Honestly, probably what I'd put on the other end of that would be a Scotch-Brite wheel. But, I would really recommend saving that $795 and adding some more pennies to it and buying something that you actually need. This thing is really limited in what it can do. And, I would get some of those, maybe a less expensive frame, and try to get my parts together and spend a little bit more and not get this. So I do not recommend getting the Grizzly personally. KMG Classic. This is their latest and greatest grinder. It's a TX. You can get it with that wheel or the platen. I think the price is the same either way. I would get the platen, but I flat grind things, so that's me. Or get both. This grinder, in fact, all the grinders except for the Ameribraid use an 1.5-inch aluminum tooling arm. The Ameribraid uses a 2-inch hollow tooling arm, which is probably just a standard 2-inch square tube. So this KMG looks really nice. It's hard to tell from this picture, but it also accommodates 2 tooling arms. So if you want to have your work rest on another tooling arm or whatever else you're doing, this has kind of a neat ratcheting a la the TW90 grinder. And I really would like a grinder with a ratcheting set on it. Now, something I didn't mention, but you notice, as I said in the shop, they all got this K-Back 27D variable speed. They all got induction motors. And again, you can see the bolts there, 1, 2, you can't see the back 2, but that's a C pattern. So this has to be a 56C plate to bolt it up, which is pretty typical, except for the Ameribraid. I think that's a super cool feature they have on the Ameribraid, to have direct drive, but not need to have a C face. This is one. This one is the one that Jeremy at Simple Little Life has, and he loves it. It looks like a really nice grinder. Again, you got your VFD in there. I suspect that might be the guts of a K-back 27D. I don't know. You got your engine back here. Looks like a Baldor with that color. Your two tooling arms, 1.5-inch aluminum tooling arms. That's a nice. This one's really nice with the way it tilts. And if you can see the way the work rest is shaped, the platen will fit right in there. So you'll have those corners to at least get that size wheel on the corner. This one appears to have a bigger wheel on the bottom like the Ameribraid. So this is a really versatile. If you don't have a lot of space, I'm not crazy about the shock, but this has a lot going for it. It's $2,800 in that form, which, you know, that's a pretty good price for what that is. This is one of the more sophisticated frames that I've seen because it's got the VFD integrated into it, and the VFD doesn't move with it when it tilts. So it's a pretty cool arrangement. I like this one. I see why Jeremy likes that one too. Here's the Northridge tool. In many of the cases of these grinders, they have like cheaper models or older models that they sell for cheaper. And that's the case here with the Northridge. Northridge has a cheaper version that they sell. And just looking at this guy, look at this. We got another C56 or 56C, however we say that. Three-phase induction motor, sealed three-phase induction motor. We got the KB 27D, K-back 27D there. We got two tooling arms. This guy also tilts. And this again is a piston tensioned idler wheel. One of the things that really caught my attention about this grinder, you know, we really get into little things when we're talking about these grinders, but the design of this work rest looks really flexible. Like it can move in a lot of different directions, but looks strong to be able to lock down. So that's of interest to me. The Northridge, though, $34.99 in a variable speed with a getup like you see here. It looks like it's also including, I couldn't find it without this, including this one small wheel attachment, which these are, if you don't have a dedicated horizontal grinder, these are phenomenal, and you would want one of these. But so this is the Northridge, great grinder, you know, not inexpensive. Here's the TW90, and again, one of the challenges with these is like this grinder comes with a fair amount of stuff. So it comes with a wheel, a platen, a separate a work rest here, and a small wheel attachment. So it comes with a little more stuff. One of the things about this though is this one is one that's relying on the single tooling arm. So your work rest and whatnot are going to kind of, I believe, need to attach to the tooling arm, to that single tooling arm, which has worked out fine for me in my grinder, which we'll get to, one of the ones I have. It's like that too. He also has, this is Travis Wertz, one of the TWs for Travis Wertz 90. One of the reasons that this is a really popular grinder, amongst other things, it is a good grinder, but it's on, or at least it was for the longest time, the main grinders they used on Forged in Fire. So a lot of guys use them. It's tilting. I have ground a few knives on this grinder. It's not a super heavy duty frame, but what I will say about it, it is surprisingly smooth. It's a very smooth running grinder, and I can't explain entirely why, but it works well. The guys that I know that have them love them, but you're paying a little bit of a premium for it, although not as much as it might appear, because you're getting, you know, some extra things. If we would add, you know, another tooling arm and a small wheel attachment and a large wheel on another, you know, that looks like an 8-inch wheel there, or a 6-inch wheel on a tooling arm, you would probably add $600 to the price of it. So if you deleted those, but I'm not sure that you can, but if you did, you'd be priced kind of in line with some of the other ones we saw there. I bring up the Burr King, and this isn't even really a model. They have so many different models, it's hard to figure out. This is a true industrial machine, and one of the reasons I put it here, like this one's like 1.5 by 60, so it's not even a 2 by 72. But look what we got here. An induction motor. It's probably a Baldor or a Leeson or whatever. They painted it their color of green, and a Quebec. Now, the difference with those other machines, I believe all the machines we're talking about are industrial strength, but this is a machine that is marketed to factories, to like larger scale factories. So because of that, you'll see they got some more safety stuff going here with the covers on all the belts. But if you're a knife maker, you know how frequently you need to change belts. You don't have to take all these covers off. I'm sure in a lot of factories they take them off and leave them off. But anyway, this is also a belt drive, which is interesting. So the motor's back there coming around a belt and running that wheel there. But these, a lot of knife makers in the early days, when there weren't all these choices that I just showed you, they would use one of these. So next up, the Esteem grinder. Now this is a less common grinder, but I can tell you, I just changed out the bearings on the on these wheels because I ground so many knives. I actually wore out the bearings finally. And it's just built better than some of the other grinders that I've had and seen. I mean, all this is steel. The whole thing's made of steel. There's no aluminum. This is a very rigid platen. It's a great machine. It is a great machine, and especially now that I've fixed my bearings on it. By the way, if you have one of these machines or you have an older machine and your bearings are loud or whatnot, like I got 10 bearings, decent bearings on Amazon for like $15, and it took me about 5 minutes to change them. So I would definitely recommend if you have one, change out your bearings if you've ground a lot of knives. And I ground with water and different things, so yeah, they don't know me anything. But this is the Esteem. It's kind of loosely based on a Bader. Limitations here are a little bit with the one tooling arm, but I've been able to work around that. I actually mainly use this grinder to freehand grind. I don't put the work rest on it very often. I just freehand grind on it. It's like my go-to freehand grinding. It's also a pretty good price. By the way, everything we're talking about today, I believe, is made in America. I might have some non-American parts here and there, but made in America. $19.50 with the VFD and the motor, at least on the site at this time. That's a great deal. That's a great deal. Under $2,000 with a VFD. You don't have the second arm. He does have a situation where it can tilt, but honestly, if tilting is a priority to you, this wouldn't be the grinder for you. But if you never tilt it, like I never tilted, I have a horizontal grinder, and I've no interest in tilting it. So I love it. It's great. It's heavy. Like this is at least 1/4 inch plate down here and a big chunk of it. So it's very smooth and steady and heavy. It's a great grinder. I love it. And this is another grinder that I have. This is actually up at a friend's shop right now. And it tilts. It is a 2-arm model. Now, see what I'm saying? This isn't the highest resolution picture, but so you got your one arm that's mounting the platen. Then you got your other arm, and that's holding the work rest. So it's actually really handy. It makes it easy and quick to make changes. This one has the tilt. Mine is a little different. It's a little different design. It tilts a little differently, although I can retrofit it to this tilting mechanism. $32.95. Now, this is another one. I don't have the price right in front of me, but it's less than $1,000 for the frame. And I did not pay $3,200. I can't remember. Maybe it was like $600 or $800. I paid for the frame, and then I had to buy all my wheels. No big deal. Bought my wheels. I had an extra motor sitting around, so I didn't even pay for that. And I think I got one of those VFDs on eBay for like $290 at the time. So, I'm probably into that reader for, I don't know, less than $1,600 or whatever. The other cool thing about the reader for you guys, it's all aluminum. Now, some guys, they'll scoff their nose at aluminum. These are also 1.5 inch. One thing about the Esteem, as well as Bader grinders, they're 1.25 inch tooling arms, so a little bit of a difference there in these tooling arms. But The thing about being all aluminum is if you're somebody who's going to use like a cool mist or some sort of spraying, or you're going to be around a lot of water, or it's wet in your shop. I know some guys' shops are like halfway outside, like just under a covering. Getting a grinder that's all aluminum may have some real appeal in that circumstance. So that would be my recommendation for the for the reader. So that's my list of grinders. It is by no means complete. There are tons of grinders out there, but I just wanted to go over a bunch of them, compare the prices. I tried to, as much as possible, make these an apples to apples comparison because there's so many different options and so many different ways to to look at them. So we have the Reader, we have the Esteem. That's a good value if you don't need tilting, and it's very well made, very well made. The Burr King was just for an example. The TW90 is very popular. It's a bit of a premium price. And remember, the whole drivetrain of these, it's pretty much all the same. The Northridge tool, also nice, but again, a little bit of a premium price. I find this Black Fox 1 very interesting. That would be on my short list. This KMG, I saw this in person at Blade. Also very nice. A little bit of a premium price, though, for what it is. But they've been making grinders a long time. Grizzly, I suggest look elsewhere. The OBM, if you are on the tightest of budgets and you get the OBM, I think they even have a model with a single speed, which I don't recommend, but I think they might even have a model with a single speed for like $1,100 or something. That now you're only $200, $300, $400 more than the Grizzly. So I would recommend it. My first choice is definitely the Ameribraid. I really like that grinder. I really like the way it works. I don't have tons of blades through it yet, but for the money, you can't beat it. And again, you get that frame for $150. A Platin's about, there's a couple arrangements of Platins. They're in the 200 range, a little over, maybe a little over 200, like 220. So now you're at 870 with the Platin. That would be my choice. And because you can fit any motor with, the mounting feet on it instead of needing a, special C56. It's not really special. It's a standard, but not every motor is designed that way. So this would be actually, if you were trying to do it on the cheap, this would be my arrangement. You find a used motor for like $65 or something, and then you get one of the cheap Chinese VFDs, and you're into this thing for under $1,000. So that's my recommendation. And the house is also, another possibility if you're not too concerned about, spending some time in the shop and building it yourself. So I hope that helps you. And just remember my disclaimers. These prices move around, and sometimes, sometimes there's even mistakes on the site. So definitely go check out their sites and decide for yourself. I hope you find this helpful. I know this is a big purchase, and I wish I had a little bit of an overview when I first started. So thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we'll see you on the next one.